Imagine standing on the edge of the world, where the vastness of snow-capped mountains stretches endlessly into the horizon, and the air is so thin that each breath feels like a connection to something far greater than ourselves. This is Tibet, a land where time seems to slow down, steeped in mystery, ancient traditions, and an unwavering spirit of spirituality. For centuries, it has captivated the hearts and minds of those who seek deeper truths. Today, we embark on a journey to uncover the hidden stories of Tibet's rich and profound spiritual past, where Buddhism is not just a belief, but a way of life. Why does Tibetan history hold such a powerful allure? It's not just a remote region in the Himalayas. It's the birthplace of teachings that have transcended borders, guiding millions across the world. Buddhism, in all its depth, originated here, in the heart of Tibet, where it has shaped the lives of its people for over 1,000 years. But Tibet's influence goes beyond religion. It's a place where the mind, body, and soul are brought together in search of enlightenment, and its history offers profound lessons on the human spirit. So, what can we learn from Tibet's journey through time? How has this small, mystical land, perched on the highest plateau on Earth, shaped the course of spirituality and culture across the world? Let's take a deeper look into Tibet's history and explore the teachings that have left an indelible mark on humanity. From the ancient monasteries to the wisdom passed down through generations, Tibet's story is a timeless reminder of the power of inner peace, compassion, and the pursuit of truth. High in the towering peaks of the Himalayas, Tibet rests like a sacred gem, hidden away from the world below by the harshness of rugged mountains and vast, treacherous terrain. This natural isolation, once seen as a barrier, has played a pivotal role in preserving Tibet's unique culture and identity for centuries. In many ways, this isolation became both a blessing and a challenge, protecting Tibetan traditions from outside influence while simultaneously limiting the ability to connect with the rest of the world. What's truly fascinating is how this very isolation allowed Buddhism to grow and evolve in a way that was deeply rooted in Tibet's own spiritual soil. Without the pressure of external forces or competing ideologies, Tibetan Buddhism developed its own distinct practices, rituals, and philosophies. These unique elements of Tibetan Buddhism, shaped over generations, remain a powerful expression of Tibetan identity and are recognized worldwide. Tibetan Buddhism's deep connection with the land, its monks, and its followers has created a path of spiritual practice that is unlike any other. From the meditative silence of the monasteries to the vibrant, colorful festivals, everything in Tibet seems to reflect the profound stillness and peace at the heart of this tradition. Even today, these ancient practices continue to captivate the hearts of millions, offering a way to live that blends wisdom, compassion, and devotion. As we delve into the history of Tibet, we uncover not just a religion, but a way of life that has stood the test of time, shaped by the land itself and the people who have devoted themselves to its teachings. Buddhism first set foot in Tibet during the 7th century, brought to the land by the visionary king Songtsen Gampo. But this was not just the arrival of an outside belief system, it was the beginning of a profound transformation. Buddhism didn't simply exist alongside the existing Tibetan traditions, it intertwined with the indigenous Bon religion, creating a new spiritual path that was uniquely Tibetan. This fusion of beliefs helped shape a culture that was rich in both spiritual depth and wisdom, blending the ancient with the new in ways that resonated deeply with the people of Tibet. Tibetan Buddhism became far more than just a religious practice. It became the very fabric of Tibetan life. The monasteries, once simple places of worship, evolved into vibrant centers of learning, meditation, and community. These sacred spaces were not only where spiritual teachings were passed down, but also where art, medicine, and philosophy were cultivated. They were the heart of Tibetan culture, guiding the people in their daily lives and shaping their understanding of the world. As centuries passed, Tibetan Buddhism laid the foundation for a way of life that would endure, providing not just spiritual enlightenment, but also a sense of identity and belonging. The monks, with their wisdom and devotion, became the spiritual leaders, guiding the community through life's trials, offering wisdom, and preserving traditions that would continue to resonate with people across the globe. Tibetan Buddhism's deep connection to the land, its people, and its customs made it a cornerstone of Tibetan history, and today it remains a beacon of peace, compassion, and inner understanding. In the 8th century, Tibetan Buddhism experienced a profound transformation that would shape its future for centuries to come. The Indian Buddhist master, Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, is credited with introducing Tantric Buddhism to Tibet. This marked a pivotal moment in Tibetan history, as the teachings of Tantra brought a new, deeply spiritual dimension to the practice of Buddhism. Tantric Buddhism, with its rich emphasis on meditation, mantra chanting, and ritual, added a powerful layer to Tibetan spirituality. These practices were not just abstract concepts or intellectual teachings. They were tangible, transformative tools designed to help practitioners directly experience the divine in their everyday lives. Through intense meditation, the repetition of sacred mantras, and sacred rituals, practitioners could transcend the ordinary world and connect with a higher state of consciousness, one that revealed the hidden, sacred nature of reality. What made Tantric Buddhism so unique was its ability to blend the mystical with the practical. It wasn't about withdrawing from the world, but about finding the divine in the very fabric of daily life. Every action, every breath, every moment could become an opportunity for spiritual awakening. This was not just a belief system. It was a path that invited practitioners to engage with the sacred in a real, personal way. The teachings of Guru Rinpoche laid the foundation for a living, breathing tradition that continues to resonate today, offering a deeply personal way to seek enlightenment and spiritual fulfillment in the modern world. In Tibetan Buddhism, Tantra became a way to access the very heart of reality through ritual, sound, and deep meditative practices that opened the door to the divine in ways never before seen in the region. And as Tibet's spiritual journey continued, these teachings would be passed down, transforming the lives of generations to come. In the 14th century, a new chapter in Tibetan history unfolded with the emergence of a spiritual leader whose influence would resonate across centuries, the Dalai Lama. The title, meaning Ocean of Wisdom, was bestowed upon the leader of the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism, a tradition founded on the principles of discipline, compassion, and profound spiritual insight. Over time, the Dalai Lama became far more than a figurehead for a single school of thought. He grew into the central figure of Tibetan religious and political life, embodying the very spirit of Tibetan identity. What makes the Dalai Lama's role so extraordinary is its unique duality. He is not just a spiritual guide, revered for his wisdom and teachings. He also serves as a political leader, a symbol of unity for the Tibetan people. This combination of spiritual and secular authority creates a role unlike any other in the world. The Dalai Lama represents not just the pursuit of enlightenment, but also the preservation of Tibet's culture, history, and autonomy, particularly in times of challenge and change. For centuries, the Dalai Lama has been a beacon of compassion, embodying the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism in action. He provides guidance not only to his followers in Tibet, but to millions across the globe, inspiring people from all walks of life with his commitment to peace, understanding, and non-violence. What many may not realize is that this role carries the immense weight of balancing spiritual ideals with the realities of leadership, a task that requires not only wisdom, but immense courage. As we reflect on the history of Tibetan Buddhism, the institution of the Dalai Lama stands out as a testament to the enduring power of faith and resilience. It is a role deeply rooted in Tibetan history and yet profoundly relevant to the modern world, continuing to inspire and guide countless lives through its unwavering dedication to compassion and justice. By the 20th century, Tibetan Buddhism began to transcend the boundaries of the Himalayas, reaching new corners of the world. Spiritual seekers from all walks of life traveled to Tibet, eager to immerse themselves in its teachings, meditate in its sacred spaces, and learn from the masters who had preserved its ancient wisdom. This era marked the beginning of Tibetan Buddhism's journey beyond its mountain home, as the profound insights of Tibetan spiritual traditions began to capture the hearts of people across the globe. Today, Tibetan Buddhism has millions of followers worldwide, with its influence stretching from the bustling streets of New York to the serene temples of Tokyo. Its teachings have found new homes in cities and countries far from the Tibetan plateau, where communities gather to practice, study, and share the wisdom of this ancient path. One of the key centers of Tibetan Buddhism today is Dharamshala, India, where the current Dalai Lama resides, continuing to serve as both a spiritual and political leader. It is here that many from around the world come to receive teachings directly from the Dalai Lama, seeking guidance on how to cultivate compassion, mindfulness, and peace in their own lives. The teachings of Tibetan Buddhism have truly crossed borders, weaving their way into modern spiritual practices across cultures. Its impact on contemporary spirituality is undeniable, offering a profound perspective on life, suffering, and enlightenment that resonates deeply with today's seekers. Whether through meditation, mantra practice, or the pursuit of inner peace, Tibetan Buddhism has become a guiding light for millions, providing not only answers to life's most profound questions, but also a path to a more compassionate, mindful, and fulfilling existence. In the 1960s, Tibet faced one of the darkest chapters in its history under the leadership of Mao Zedong in China. The Cultural Revolution brought about widespread destruction and suffering, with Tibetans becoming primary targets of brutal persecution. Monasteries, which had long been the spiritual heart of Tibetan culture, were torn down, their sacred texts and relics burned. Religious practices were banned, and many Tibetans were arrested, tortured, or forced into exile. Among those forced to flee was the Dalai Lama, who sought refuge in India, marking a painful turning point in Tibet's spiritual and political life. It's heartbreaking to reflect on how a culture so rich in wisdom, art, and spirituality was nearly wiped out. Tibetan Buddhism, which had flourished for centuries, seemed on the brink of being erased from the world. The monasteries that had once been centers of learning and devotion were reduced to rubble. The people of Tibet, whose way of life was built on compassion and reverence for life, found themselves in the midst of unfathomable loss. Yet, what is truly remarkable is how Tibetan culture and Buddhism survived this devastating period. Despite the violent efforts to suppress it, the spirit of Tibetan Buddhism endured. The Tibetan people's resilience, their unyielding devotion to their faith, and their determination to preserve their way of life became a beacon of hope. Tibetan Buddhism did not just survive, it adapted and spread across the world, finding new homes and new followers. This resilience is nothing short of inspiring. It serves as a testament to the strength of a culture deeply rooted in compassion, wisdom, and the belief in the power of the human spirit to endure, even in the darkest of times. Today, Tibetan Buddhism finds itself facing a new set of challenges in an increasingly fast-paced, interconnected world. With the rise of technology, social media, and globalization, the way Tibetans practice their faith is undergoing a transformation. From virtual teachings and online meditation sessions to the influence of modern culture, the way Tibetan Buddhism is shared and experienced is shifting. But what does this mean for the future of such an ancient and profound tradition? Some argue that these changes could threaten the very core of Tibetan Buddhism, with traditional practices and rituals at risk of being diluted or lost entirely in the noise of the modern world. The deep, personal connection that once existed between teacher and student in remote monasteries could be compromised by the impersonal nature of digital platforms. The essence of the sacred practices might feel distant or less authentic to those seeking a true Tibetan spiritual experience. On the other hand, there are those who believe that Tibetan Buddhism's remarkable adaptability is one of its greatest strengths. Throughout history, Tibetan Buddhism has faced countless challenges: foreign invasions, political upheaval, and cultural revolutions, and each time it has endured, often emerging even stronger. Its ability to adapt without compromising its core principles is what has allowed it to survive for over 1,000 years. In today's world, Tibetan Buddhism is not just a religious practice, but a global movement, reaching millions of people who are drawn to its teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and inner peace. So, what do you think? Can an ancient, deeply rooted tradition like Tibetan Buddhism not only survive but thrive in the digital age? Or are we witnessing the slow fading of a spiritual path that has inspired generations? The future of Tibetan Buddhism is still unfolding, and it's up to all of us to reflect on how we can preserve its timeless wisdom while embracing the changes of the modern world. At the heart of Tibetan Buddhism lie three core principles that shape not just the path of meditation, but the very way practitioners live their lives: compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. These teachings are not abstract ideas. They are practical tools meant to guide every thought, action, and decision. Compassion, for example, is not simply a feeling we reserve for moments of kindness or when we encounter suffering. It's a way of life, a lens through which we see the world and interact with others. Tibetan Buddhists deeply believe that everything in the universe is interconnected, every being, every moment, and every action. This interconnectedness is a fundamental truth that defines their view of the world. It's why compassion in Tibetan Buddhism isn't seen as a soft, optional virtue, but as an essential force that binds us all together. When you understand that all beings are connected, your heart naturally expands to include others in your care, your thoughts, and your actions. It's about recognizing that the pain of one is the pain of all, and the joy of one is the joy of all. Imagine how different our world would be if more of us incorporated compassion into our daily routines. If we made an effort to genuinely connect with those around us, to listen with empathy, and to act with kindness in both the big and small moments of life. Tibetan Buddhism teaches us that compassion is not a passive act. It's a dynamic, active practice that requires constant attention and effort. And it's through this practice that we can begin to transform not just our own lives, but also the lives of those we encounter. The impact of such a shift in perspective can be profound, not only on a personal level, but on a global scale. Wouldn't it be incredible if we all made compassion the cornerstone of our daily lives? Monasteries in Tibet are far more than just places of worship. They are the very heart of Tibetan life. These sacred spaces have served as hubs of learning, culture, and community for centuries. In a society where education was not widely accessible to the general population, monasteries became the foundation of Tibetan intellectual and cultural life. It was within the walls of these monasteries that the preservation of Tibetan knowledge, philosophy, and traditions took place. Here, scholars, artists, and practitioners came together to study ancient texts, create sacred art, and engage in philosophical debates. These monasteries were not just spiritual sanctuaries, they were centers of vibrant intellectual activity. The monks and nuns of Tibet hold an extraordinary role in Tibetan society. They are not simply religious leaders, they are the keepers of an entire cultural and intellectual tradition. From the intricacies of Tibetan medicine to the timeless wisdom of Buddhist philosophy, they have passed down knowledge that would have otherwise been lost to time. Without them, much of Tibet's unique culture, its art, its music, its rituals, and its history would have vanished into the depths of time. In many ways, the preservation of Tibet's cultural identity rests on the shoulders of these devoted individuals. They have maintained the spiritual teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, safeguarded ancient texts, and ensured that the rich traditions of Tibet continue to thrive. The monks and nuns are the unsung heroes, quietly keeping the flame of Tibetan knowledge alive, and without them, the world would have lost an irreplaceable treasure. Since the Chinese invasion in 1950, Tibet has been locked in a long and painful struggle for its autonomy. The Tibetan people have fought not just for political freedom, but for the preservation of their culture, religion, and way of life. For decades, they have faced tremendous challenges, including widespread repression, the destruction of their monasteries, and the forced relocation of many Tibetans. Despite this, their spirit remains unbroken. Tibetan Buddhists continue to practice their faith in exile, while the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism spread across the globe, influencing millions. But the question remains, can Tibet ever reclaim its independence? Or is it time for a new kind of relationship with the world's superpowers? Tibet's fight for autonomy has been long and difficult, and the geopolitical landscape has changed dramatically over the years. While the Tibetan diaspora continues to advocate for a free Tibet, the reality of international politics presents a complex and daunting challenge. The world has evolved, and the future of Tibet may require a new path, one that balances the preservation of Tibetan culture and Buddhism with the realities of living within a globalized world. So, what do you think? Will Tibet's dream of independence ever become a reality, or is a different kind of solution on the horizon? The future of Tibet is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Its people's resilience, their deep commitment to their culture, and their unwavering belief in the power of compassion will continue to shape the world for generations to come. What role will the international community play in this future? Only time will tell. Despite the many challenges that Tibet has faced over the years, Tibetan Buddhism continues to inspire millions of people around the world. Its teachings on compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness resonate more than ever in today's fast-paced and often chaotic world. These core values offer a path toward inner peace and understanding, reminding us of the deep interconnection between all beings. In a time when many are searching for meaning and purpose, Tibetan Buddhism provides a beacon of hope, guiding practitioners to cultivate kindness, clarity, and presence in their daily lives. Looking ahead, Tibet's story is far more than one of survival. It is a powerful tale of resilience, hope, and spiritual depth. Tibetan Buddhism has endured centuries of trials, from political upheaval to cultural destruction, and yet it has not only survived, but flourished in new and unexpected ways. The teachings, once confined to the Himalayan region, have found a global audience, touching lives in ways that transcend borders. In many ways, Tibetan Buddhism is more relevant today than ever before, offering timeless wisdom to a world in need of healing. So, what lies ahead for Tibetan Buddhism? Will it continue to grow, spread, and inspire countless more people across the globe? Or will new challenges emerge as it navigates the complexities of the modern world? What's certain is that the story of Tibet, its struggles, its triumphs, and its deep spiritual heritage is far from over. The future of Tibetan Buddhism will be shaped not just by its traditions, but by the collective will of its people and the global community that continues to support and be inspired by this extraordinary path. The journey is just beginning.